Hello and 07 to all of you, and welcome to this next video in our drag and drop series. You can find the previous videos in the series in the description. I am Swatpop Gaming, and this will be our third video for the multiple item drag and drop and final for the whole drag and drop tutorial series. In this video we'll be looking at dragging and dropping the widgets we want to drag. Before we start, please take a second to like and subscribe. Okay, we got quite a lot to go through today, so let's get to it. Alright, now that we got a selection working, and we're getting a selection into an array, it's time to start working on a drag and drop. Now, we already have one drag and drop operation for single widget use, and we could implement this multi-widget drag and drop operation into that as well. But I decided that we can create a new one that will handle the multi-widget drag and drop. So let's create that now. Alright, let's go into our content browser. We're going to right click here and choose blueprint class, and we're going to search for drag and drop. And we're going to take the parent class drag and drop operation, and we're going to select that. We're going to call this multiple item drag and drop. Let's open this up. And in this one, we're going to drag over two items. We're going to drag over the array we created, and we're going to drag over which parent widget it came from, if it was the left Dropbox or the right. So let's start with creating the first, and this will be an item array. And it will be of type multiple item struct that we created earlier. And I'm going to change this into being an array. And then we're going to have another variable, and it's going to be an original widget. And the type is going to be user widget. And we're going to say object reference. Alright, and we're going to drag this down a little bit here. And they are both going to be instant editable and exposed to spawn. And the original widget is supposed to be a single and not an array as it was. So we're going to compile and save. And we can compile and we can save that, and now we can close it. Alright, let's open up our dragged item. And we're going to go to the graph, and now we're going to find the on drag detected. So what we want to find out here now, first of all, is are we dragging more than one item? If we want to use our new drag and drop version. But if we are just dragging one item, we want to use the old code that we already created here. So we're going to get ourselves some room. So what we want to do is we want to check the array, and we should want to check the length of that array. Right. So we're going to get us left Dropbox, and we need to check, are we dragging from the left Dropbox? We're going to do an is valid here. If we are dragging from the left Dropbox, we want to get a copy of the left Dropbox again, and we're going to get the array. And what we want to do is we want to check the length of this array. And if this length is greater than 1, that means that we're dragging more than one item. So if it's greater than 1, if it's greater than 1, then we want to drag it into our new drag and drop. However, if it's not, we want to drag it into the old. So we're going to do a branch here. And we're going to use this as condition. And we're going to drag false into the old drag and drop operation. We're going to connect the is valid down to this branch. We are checking all this, and then Shift A, getting them lined up maybe a little bit there. And we're going to comment this with is the length of the array larger than 1? And what do we want to do if it is? Well, we want to create a new drag and drop operation. So we're going to do a create drag and drop operation. The one we want to do is multiple item drag and drop. So what we can start out with is we can get our current widget, and we're going to connect that into original widget there. And then we need an item array. So we can drag in the multiple item array from the as left Dropbox. However, it could also come from the right Dropbox. So let's set this as a local variable first. So what we can do here is we can click on multiple item array here, and we can promote this to a local variable. Now we're going to connect it to the true statement here, and we are going to rename this to local multi item array. And now we can connect this to our multiple item drag and drop. And we're going to drag in the local multiple item array and connect it up to our item array here. And just to make this easy, we're going to get a reference to self. And we're going to connect that to the default drag visual. So we're not going to have any special visual representation for this drag and drop, but you could create that if you want to. And the pivot is going to be on mouse down. Cool. So we can comment this with creating multiple item drag and drop. The next thing we want to do, if you remember from our cleanup video, we set the return value here. And that was just to make it easier at this position that we are going to return something in the return node, and it's a drag and drop operation. So we are setting it right here, and we are going to do that down here as well. So we're going to just copy and paste this and connect it up. We want to do the same thing if we're dragging from the right Dropbox. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get as right Dropbox, and we're going to get a is valid, so we can copy this, connect these guys up, and it's not valid, and connect it to this one, and we're going to comment this with, are we dragging from the left or right Dropbox? All right. And we are going to copy all of this. I'm going to paste it up here just to get it a little separated. And we're going to connect is valid here. However, we are going to change this to as right Dropbox and get array. And this is what we are going to set our local multi-item array with. And connect that up here. All right. So false, same thing here, goes into this one, and true goes from this all the way down here. So we're going to clean this up a little bit. First of all, we are going to connect this one to that one. A reroute node there, and we're going to connect this one to this reroute node, and we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to get this one, and we're going to connect this output into the reroute node. So the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that when we drag in the item, it disappears from the scroll box from which it was dragged from. So let's get that done. We're going to go down here to after we set the return value. First of all, we want to copy this, are we dragging from the left to right Dropbox, because now we want to access the scroll box as well. So we're going to clean this up a little bit here because we are going to separate these a little bit. So let's get, are we dragging from the left Dropbox? And we're going to remove or right there. I'm going to grab these two, get them out of the way. Get that out of the way. Boom. All right. As this is an array of items, we can just go through and drop everything in the scroll box. We need to run through the array and make sure that they are the same item and same item name as the item in the scroll box. So the array and the scroll box need to match up in order to get it to be dropped off the scroll box. All right, so let's create a new function that can do that comparison for us. So we're going to go up to functions, click on the plus, and we are going to call this compare items in array to scroll box. Nice long name, but at least we know exactly what's going to happen here. We want to know what scroll box we're going to remove the items from, and we want to know what item to remove. So that information needs to be passed into this function, and we're going to do that with the inputs. So we're going to click on our input node here, and on the left side here on the details we have the inputs. So we're going to press the plus icon here to get a input, and we're going to name this scroll box. And this is of type panel widget. We're going to get the object reference, and then we are going to get the array. So we're going to add a new input called item array, and this is going to be of type multiple item struct, and this is going to be an array. And because we're not going to use the scroll box just yet, we are going to right click on the pin and promote it to local variable, and we're going to call it local scroll box. All right. Set that there. I'm going to drag it up a little bit. Now, the next thing we want to do is when we get the array, and we want to loop through it and get all the items in it. So we're going to do a for each loop. So what is it that we want to get from this? Well, we want to break the array element, right? Because we want the item name. And it's the item name we want to compare with the item name in the scroll box. So the next thing we want to do is we also want to loop through the scroll box. So we're going to get the scroll box, and we're going to get all the children. And we want to loop through the children as well. And we're going to connect that to loop body. So every time we have an item in the array, we want to loop through the children and say, hey, do we have this item in our scroll box? And if we do, then we want to remove it, right? So this array element, we want to cast that to a dragged item. So every time we find an item, we want to cast to dragged item, and we want to know what is the name of this. Get item name. So now we have two item names that we can compare to each other. Now you can't compare text to text, but you can compare strings to strings. So we're going to convert this to string. These two we can actually compare. So equal exactly and string, and the string equal exactly string. So is this and this the exact the same? So are they the same? Then we need to do a branch. And we're going to connect this to the branch. So if they are the same, so we want to get our local scroll box, and we want to remove that child. Remove child. True. So. And the item you want to remove is the dragged item here. So what we can do here is we can move these down, and so everything is nice and tidy. And we're going to comment this a little bit. The first thing we do here, looping through all the items in the item array. And the next thing we are doing here is we are looping through items in the scroll box. And then we are casting to the dragged item. And we are comparing the dragged item. There we go, all that. So what are we doing here? Change the comment here to get the item name from the Dropbox and from the array, compare them to each other. All right, and then down here we are removing child if true. And if it's false, we're not doing anything. So that's basically what we're doing here. We can compile and save. And let's go back to our on drag detected. And here we are. So now what we want to do is we want to run through this new function that we created. And we're going to connect our local multi-item array that we created earlier. And the scroll box we are going to get, let's drag them out a little bit here, is from the left drop box and get scroll box. And we are connecting that up. Boom. And if this is valid, we are going to this. And if it's not valid, we're going to go from the right one. So we do the same thing here. I'm going to drag out from the right Dropbox. We're going to copy this. We can remove those and get a scroll box. Let's see here, Shift A. And we're going to comment this. Compare items and remove child if equal. Go, we can copy this one and we are going to paste it down here. Now these are just going basically into the return node, so we're going to connect that up. We're going to get the reroute node and we are going to connect this guy. So what we can do now, we can compile and say we can just test out if it is removing our items that we want. So we press the play button. We're using our control button. Got 3 items. So if I start dragging, they should remove all 3. And they do. Perfect. Awesome. All right, move on. So the next thing we want to do is when we're dragging an item, and we're dropping it outside the zone that are intended, we want it to be placed back in the original drop zone. Just like we did before with a single item. So where do we have that code? Well, if we go back to the event graph here, this is where we have that code. So we're dragging from the left Dropbox here. We are not getting a success message. And that is false. So we re-add this widget to the scroll box. Now, we want to do that even if we have multiple items. So that's what we're going to do now. So the first thing we want to do here is down here. We are going to check if our array is larger than 1. So we know that we're dragging from the left Dropbox. So we can just drag in as left Dropbox here. And we're going to get the array. And we're going to check the length of that array. And if this is greater than 1, check if this is greater than 1. And we're going to do a branch, and we are connecting that. I'm going to get the false button here. And if it is greater than 1, we want to do something. If it's false, we just want to add this widget to the scroll box. So we're going to get that there. Now we're going to drag all of this down a little bit, get some room for us. We're going to comment all this, check if the array is larger than 1. If the array is larger than 1, we want to loop through that and re-add all the children, right? So we're going to get a for each loop. I'm going to grab our multiple item array. We're going to connect that, and we're going to take the true statement into the executive. What we want to do is we want to create a new widget and place it in the Dropbox. So we are going to drag from the loop body here, create widget. And the widget we want to create is, of course, our dragged item widget. And we're going to get the item name and item amount. We're going to get that from the array element here. So we're going to break multiple item struct. And we're going to get the item name and the item amount. And we're going to set our current widget as the current widget, because we are dropping it back to where we actually came from. So the last thing we also want to do here is, of course, we want to add the child to the Dropbox. So we're going to take our as left Dropbox and get a scroll box. And we're going to do add child. There we go. Connect that up, and we are connecting the return value to the content. When we are completed though, when all the children have been added, we want to clear the array because now we don't need it again. We want to reselect all the items if we're going to drag it again. So we're going to clear the array here. So to make it a little bit more understandable, we are going to copy these guys here. I'm going to connect that in here. Let's see if we clean this up a little bit. Drag it over. I'm going to get this and we're going to say clear array and connect that to the complete. And we're going to comment this with for each item in the array, move to add widget and clear the array when finished. Okay, and over here it's just basically create new item widget and add to Dropbox. Now we're going to basically do the same, but we're going to do it for the right Dropbox. So we're going to copy all this, paste it in here, move little things around here. I'm going to connect the false into this guy here, and the false into this guy here. And now we're going to say that this is going to be from the right Dropbox. So as right Dropbox, get array, connect these guys up. There we go. We can copy these two. First Shift A, then copy. And remove these two here. And connect these guys up. That's it. That is that. So let's test this out. Compile and save. We're going to play it. Let's take the 3 items. We have clicked the control. We are going to click, drag out, and drop it outside the drop zone. And boom, it comes back exactly where we want it to come back. There we go. Okay, so that's that. Another thing I want to look at here is if we are canceling, if we are dropping it in the correct place, we also want to clear the array. So even if the success message has been sent, at this point we want to clear the array and make sure that it's ready for the next time we are dragging and dropping. So what we're going to do here is we are going to get this code right here. And we're going to paste it up here and drag that, and we're going to Shift A. And we are going to drag this down, get these guys out of the way a little bit, and we're going to do an own comment on these guys. I'm going to go set success message to false and clear array. Go, and let's see. I'm going to do that on this side as well. Copy those guys. So before we move on, there is one more thing we want to do here. So down here, if false, add this widget to the scroll box. Yes, that is correct. But we want to do one more thing. Then we want to make sure that is selected is set back to false. Because as it is now, it is not. So if we press play now, if we take one item here and we drag it outside the Caesar, we are going to drop it in a position where it's going to be re-added to the left side. We want it to be deselected when it's dropped back, but it's not. It's actually still selected. So let's get that out of the way. And we do that here. After we add it, we want to deselect it. So we're going to get from the self here, as self, we're going to set it's selected. I'm going to set that to false. We're going to set this child into the scroll box, and then it will set itself to not selected. So we're going to get that over here as well. So from self, we're going to say is selected. And set that to false. And if we compile and save that now, let's see, if we take the Caesar and we drop it down here, it should not be selected when we drop it, and it's not. So now that is working as well. Perfect. So that is what we need to do here. So now we're going to move on to make sure that they get added into the opposite Dropbox when we're releasing them. All right. So let's go to the content browser and open the right Dropbox. We're going to go into the graph, and here is where this magic is happening. All right. So the first thing we want to do here is we want to cast it to the my item drag and drop, right? However, this could actually fail now, because now we have another type of drag and drop. We got the multiple item drag and drop. So we have a cast failure. And if that happens, we want to cast it to the multiple item drag and drop. And we're going to connect this operation up to this one as well. So we're going to have two lines. We have one up here for the single widget. And down here, we're going to have for multiple widgets. So we're going to comment this with, are we dragging multiple items? We're going to get our original widget. And because this is the right Dropbox, this will be left Dropbox. Cast to left Dropbox. Cast to left Dropbox. And we are going to send our successful message. Set success message. That we actually have officially dropped off our payload. So we are going to do that. So we send success message. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to loop through the item array that we sent with this one. So get item array. I got a little reroute so it looks a little bit better. And we're going to loop through this with a for each loop. For each loop body, we want to set the item name and the item amount. So I'm going to break this multiple item struct. So every time it's looping through, we will reset the item name and the item amount. So set that, and we are going to take the item name, connect that up, gonna get the loop body here, and we're gonna get the item amount, set that as well, and get a reroute and connect that. So what are we doing here? Well, we are commenting this with loop through all items in array and set name and amount. Now we want to know if we already have this item. So remember, we want to know if we already have the item in the Dropbox. So let's say we have alpha with a value of 5 in the right Dropbox and an alpha with a value of 5 in the left Dropbox. We don't want to create two alphas in the right Dropbox. We only want to have one, but we want to update the amount if that is the case. Now we already have this function. So we have find existing row and change the amount. We're just going to drag that out here. And we are going to connect these guys up, because in this function, if you remember, we are actually checking the item name and item amount. So we are setting those up for success in this one. We can double click on this and just make sure that we understand what we're actually doing here. So we take all the children in the scroll box, then we loop through them and comparing if they have the same name as the item name we just set. If they have the same name, then we grab the item amount value from both the existing widget and the dragged widget and adding them together. Then we update the item amount with that result. And then we set the row found boolean to true, so we know that we found a row. All right. all that happens in this one. So we are run find existing row function. That is what we're doing here. So if a row has been found, so we got the row found here, we're setting that, we're going to get that, I'm going to do a branch. So if a row was found, we're going to set this to false because we want to know that the next time, the next loop we're doing here, we want to make sure that, well, now you need to do another check here if you found a row, because otherwise this will be true the first time and the second time and the third time and because we're not setting it to false at any point. So this is where we're setting it to false. All right, if it is false though, we didn't find a row, then we're going to create a new widget. So create widget, and we're going to do a dragged item widget, and we're going to get the item name, item amount, and we're going to get the current widget, and that is going to be self. And then we're going to add it to the scroll box. So we're just going to get the scroll box here. And we're going to add child. There we go. And we are connecting these guys. Let's move this up. And then we're going to drag this out. We're going to comment this with if row was not found, add new widget. So that is that. We are going to comment this as well. We're just going to say was row found. And then lastly here, we are checking all the rows. And when we completed, we need to get this guy. I'm going to get that into this guy because it's going out to the return node here. So we are done. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this a little prettier, and I think that's good enough. So we're going to compile. I'm going to save this, and let's test this out. We're going to grab 1, 2, 3 Alpha, Bravo, and Caesar. And we're going to grab these and drop them. And now we're going to check if everything else is working. Oh, wait a minute. Ah. Right, let's see here. Oh yeah, I did a little mistake here. Send success message. That's got to be true, of course. Otherwise, that won't work. So compile and save, and let's do a test. And we're taking Delta, Caesar, Bravo, dragging them over, and there they are. Caesar and Delta and Bravo is working. It won't work on the other way. We have to do that too. One thing though, we are going to split the stack. We're taking the shift key on Alpha, and we are dragging and confirming. So we have Alpha 8, we have Alpha 12. So now I'm going to take both of these guys out. And when we're dragging this now, it should update to Alpha and not creating a new row. Let's see. That's exactly what happened. Perfect. So we just got one more thing to do, and that is completely copy everything and basically do the same thing in the left Dropbox, but that should be easy enough. So we're going to the content browser here, going into the left Dropbox, going to graph. So here is where we need it to happen. I'm gonna get this whole shebang here from the right Dropbox. Copy. I'm gonna paste that in here. Do nothing. We're just going to confirm because we are going to update this a little bit. Let's see. Boom. All right. Go from the left here. We are going to get the fail. Cast failed. We cast that to that, and we are casting it to the right Dropbox now. Gonna get the cast to right Dropbox. And we can update this as well. Right, Dropbox, connect that up, boom. And now this is incorrect, so we're gonna get this and set success message to true this time. Okay. And we are going to, let's see, we are getting the item array that is correct. We're looping through it, and we are going to find the existing row function, and we're going to remove that, and we're going to get the correct one from this side. Connect that up. And let's see, row found. It should work out the same way. This one needs to be connected up to that one. And then we are creating the item array, item name, item amount already exists as variable here. That works fine. We need to change out the scroll box. It's got the same name as me, but it actually would work, but like that. So let's compile and save and see what errors we get. So yes, we're going to, oh, that is what we need to do. We need to connect the operations here. Boom. And compile and save. And let's test it out. So we got these. We drag those over. So we take two here. We drag them back. And that works perfect. And we're going to drag this in here. And that did not work. All right. They just disappeared. Cool. So we got something. Let's see what wrong we did. So it's in the drag item, and it's definitely on this side here. As right Dropbox, as right Dropbox, as right Dropbox. Ah, here we go. As left Dropbox. Look at that. I'm gonna remove that. I'm gonna get as right Dropbox. And get scroll box. Connect that. Boom. Compile and save. And let's drag 1, 2. Now it works perfect. And let's test out the last thing, and that is doing a split the stack, and I will drag in both of these, and they are updating as we wanted. So, well, that is it. So I want to thank you guys for joining me on this long journey of the drag and drop functionalities. But now we got all these functions working out for us. We have the drag and drop of single items. We have the split stack functionality. And we have the control click selecting multiple items, and we can deselect them as we please, and we are dragging them over and everything working perfectly. So I want to thank you all for sticking with me on this long journey, and well, that's it. Like and subscribe. I'm SwatPop Gaming. I'll see you next time. Take care.